Well, there we are. A little bit dramatic. Maybe I should have played that to begin with before trying it out, but it's good to have a little heads up for the audience and also for our guests, because you don't want mayonnaise across their face after eating half a sandwich, as we might have had last week, or maybe lads going off to get a drop of these and forgetting 9 o'clock is the kickoff time and it's actually 9:10 before we get started. We will reveal who the blame goes to on that regard in a few moments' time. But hello and welcome along. It is, of course, the Left Wing Back podcast, and it is the Hurling Show once again. We have plenty of discussion to get through. Among our running order this evening, we are going to talk about the Feile at the weekend. We're going to talk about under 20s, under 17s, junior, intermediate, senior, you name it. We also have team of the week to announce. We have a player of the week to announce. We're going to talk about Carlow Camogies. Big win at the weekend, keeps them in the intermediate ranks for 2022, and plenty more besides. Bit of post-match reaction coming in our direction as well from the weekend. We did, of course, share a couple of snippets at the weekend with Conor Feile, Mullins Rangers manager, after their win over St. Mullins. And we also shared Gavin Nolan, the Banyaston manager, after their win over Ballinkillen. Tonight we will hear from Marty Mouse Kavanagh, Alfie Corcoran and Owen Larkin. But as usual, I'm delighted to welcome Joe Nolan and Stevie Bambrick onto the podcast. Stevie's back from his brief little sabbatical. And yeah, good to have you, lads. How's things?
Oh, good. We better get the blame out of the way.
Job.
So we better get the blame out of the way there, Stevie. You got the diesel for the generator this week.
I'm not going to mayonnaise and I don't know what whether you're expecting Joy or going to get diesel at 9 o'clock of a Monday night in August.
Yeah, you're pulling out early in the morning, obviously, boss.
Back to work tomorrow, yeah. So the dream is over.
Poor teacher.
Yeah.
We're off. God love him. Isn't it horrible? And getting paid for it as well. Huh?
Oh, here we go. That's a whole other podcast, man.
Well, listen, good to have you on. Well, look, as we said, we have a plethora of stuff to get through. First and foremost, quick thoughts on the All-Ireland final. An awesome Limerick performance, and well, I think probably the best half of hurling I've ever seen in the All-Ireland final, that first half from Limerick.
Yeah, incredible. Sorry, Stevie, on you go. You're warming the cards there.
Thinking banning the goal up there. Some lads say they're always.
I said after.
I didn't say that. Now that's just a quote, by the way. I'm just putting it out there.
Right. Okay. After 10 minutes, I predicted it was going to be the highest score in All-Ireland final ever, but that wasn't rocket science. No. They broke the record. What was it, 332 or 3? The highest score in aggregate final, I think, of all time as well. But Asher Cork, I know, look, Limerick don't need goals. And if you give Limerick 2 goals in the first 10 minutes, the game is gone. You know, Kilkenny in their head, they hit 22, 23, 25 points. They'll show 2 goals, and that's 30 points. But this is after going on to a different level altogether, like, you know. So, and they'll hit probably 17 or 18 wides as well. But just, I know, many again, boys, a cliche, but with the first goal, Luke made, I don't know whether he meant to do the back flick of a pass, but like Garrod Hegarty coming in on the ball then and off at Keane Lynch, you know, just there's only one answer coming up there, and then the Garrod Hegarty getting 2 goals, and Galan getting 1, like Galan 2-on-2 inside, and ended up being looked more like 3-on-2 with the Cork player sucked to the ball, and you know, it was damage limitations after that. But just they're an awesome outfit. You know, you're thinking back to the teams they had in the 70s and 80s there, Joe McKenna, Tommy Quaid, all these great hurlers got to All-Ireland finals, and it's had a struggle to get 10, 12, 13 points in All-Ireland finals and lost by a couple of points in 96, then 94, 96. Like Kieran Carey, Kirby, all these boys and Patrick's well. Like Kieran Carey, like, was an awesome hurler, and his nephew was after just leaving him he's not even the best hurler in his family now at the moment.
No, Keane Lynch is incredible. In fairness, he really is incredible. Like, but just from the point of view of like where they rank among the all-time great sides, like in my opinion, they should really that should have been their fourth in a row the other day, because like it was just a pure lapse of concentration, I feel, against Kilkenny a couple of years back, which ultimately cost them. A couple of decisions as well maybe on the day, let's be honest about steps for a goal, and namely a 65. But for that lapse in concentration, I believe it is 4, and they could be going for 5 in a row. I still think they could get actually 5 in a row. If you look at the age profile of the side, it's just ridiculous. I think Hegarty is what? He's under 25, Ilan is under 25, or the Morrissey's the same. Like Declan Hannon perhaps is near enough the oldest outfield player at 29 or 30.
Yeah.
Give or take, like, so that's a scary prospect for a few years' time. So look, lads, we'll leave it at that, because we're focusing on the club stuff here. There's enough lads talking about the All Ireland, which sure nobody talks about poor Carlow. So we'll do our best here to keep promoting the local stuff anyway. Just like let's start with the Feile stuff, because I thought Burn Rangers were the story of the weekend. I know we're picking the team of the week later on, which we're going to reveal, but they actually were the team of the week, and that was the story of the week. To win a Feile, like an A Feile, incredible stuff, Joe. You probably know what's going on out there a bit more, because you're involved at underage level and stuff. And Stevie, you as well, of course. You have a lad in around that age, so it's serious stuff. And we will come to the B final as well in a moment.
Yeah, a wonderful achievement by Burn Rangers. To beat Leinster Rangers, I think it was like, 2 points, was it 3-2 to 8 points or 3-2 to 9 points or something like that. And then they played in the group stage as well. I think there was only a point in it as well, the night before or whatever, or day before. So yeah, an excellent win for them. In fairness, like we said, I suppose we've been talking about the club long enough on the podcast here or on different shows, and about the work that's going on out there at different levels. And I suppose, like you said, Stevie sees it firsthand, I suppose, with his own young lad, at that roughly at that age group as well, and you can see the progress they're making. I suppose I would see it maybe a bit at schools level, but also maybe, and just after kind of touching base with one of the development squads there as well, and you can see the quality of the hurlers that are being produced out there by Burn Rangers. And like we said, sure, look, I mean, it's a wonderful thing for them. I really do think. I think someone mentioned here the last day, about them pushing on and being another senior club in a couple of years' time, and they have that potential out there. And something like this, while it's small, and I know there's a lot of steps between 15 and 15 and getting to adult grade and keeping all those lads and etc., moving it forward. But it's such a big lift for the club out there. You know what I mean? It has to be a big lift for the club out there, and it kind of puts them, squarely on the map in terms of their status as well. And it's a nice thing. I know they would have won and been competitive in a lot of finals prior to this as well. Maybe sometimes at B level as well, but this puts them right up there as well. But I suppose, look, if you're looking at the results, they've been very competitive, as we were going to talk about as well. Like other clubs there, the use of the Kilkenny League down through the age groups now. I think it's all the way down nearly, through all the age groups now, where Carlow teams are playing, in the Kilkenny League as well, and that seems to be paying off big time for all the clubs. I think getting rid of that kind of idea of, I won't say familiarity, I think it's great for the game, where you're used to playing different clubs, different players. You learn a lot more, like, because if you're conditioned to be playing the same teams, day in, day out, you kind of just play them rather than playing the game. But yeah, an incredible story for the weekend, and it was wonderful to see, and it was good news to come through on Sunday morning there.
Stevie, you're involved obviously in the B final, yourselves in Bindstown, which Bindstown I think won by a point in the end. So talk through that.
Yeah, 2 points actually. 1-6-7. We had a great first half. There's never anything between ourselves and Bindstown. Of course, one of our own lads, nearly. It was TJ Darcy. His granny, first cousin of mine, Bridget's. But like, he was deadly. I think he scored a 1-6. He scored maybe just a point from play. But like, we were well on top of the first half in Wales. We're 6-2 up. It probably should have been more up. And they just gradually wore us back down in the second half, and they could hope be 2 points. And fair play to them, as I said, there's never anything between us. And like the Burn Rangers lads, we were coming out, and Burn Rangers were warming up on the outside pitch along with Leinster Rangers. And so I went down to the intermediate match in Michelin after that, and I was keeping an eye on the score. So I seen the score 3-2 to 8 points. I was but one bit surprised, because they drew with Leinster Rangers on Friday night, and I think with the Feile, to make sure there wasn't going to be they had to get a winner on the night for that game. Them two teams were probably always going to come out on the A side in that group. The one I think Rangers won by a point after, right, and they beat Carlow by a point in the semi-final as well. Burn Rangers. So like their games, like, they were they're battle hardened. They've been in Kilkenny League. You look at the photo after the match. They're all lads I know very well. Tony Sinnott there would be heavily involved. I think he's from Wexford side now. You have Kieran Bulger, Mick Bunny Nolan, Martin Doyle. Like they're all top men. Like, and the work. And you know the thing about this is pretty sad in one way that they're not actually going to the real Feile. If you look at it that way, and I seen that with Grange a couple of years ago. The year was called off the COVID. Like we got to go 2 years ago to Cork. Well, it was in Kerry. We ended up in the Kerry part of it, but like the weekend, that brings it on to a new level. And actually, seeing it even with our lads over the weekend, playing the matches Friday night. No, I wasn't at Friday night, but Saturday, winning the 2 matches, especially a knockout game. The lift it gives young lads in the first half, always, I'd never seen them playing as well as the first half yesterday, and still we probably were disappointed we weren't more up. And as I said, like just the weekend itself, the amount of hurling lads got into their systems, we'll call it, just showed the benefits of playing the Kilkenny League. Like there was some cracking games, cracking scores, and like they're 20 minutes a game, 20 minutes aside. So they're a bit longer than normal Feile games, so I think they're 15. So 2, 3 or 4 could win the 15-minute game. Whereas these games now, there weren't much more scores in it, but I thought it was a great weekend. Obviously, getting to a final, you want to say that. If you'd have won it, it'd be a brilliant weekend. But back to Burn Rangers, like the work they're doing out there. Like Martin Doyle would have heard of Kildavin back in, say, he's a couple of years older than I am. Mick Nolan would have been more known as footballer with Kildavin and Carlow. You know, so obviously these lads, most of these lads, if not them all, have young lads on the panels, and they're all on the county under 15 squad as well. So I'm looking at them, and like they're as good as better than anyone in the county. So great to see that. As we said with Carlow, it's a small county. We need every man jack sticking their hand up, no matter whether it's camogie, hurling, ladies football, 4 corners. There's not too far between one and the other, and everyone has to be rowing in for results. Like you see, the women lost yesterday to Antrim after extra time. I was looking at, they just couldn't get the bloody second score to stay that much ahead, and it's just that games are at knockout stages now, and it's that stage of the year where a small thing's going to turn a thing. So you know, it's just back to Burn Rangers. They're coming, and they'll probably, the junior, I'd say, I'd be more surprised they don't make the semi-finals now. They're fixed match against Michael whenever that's coming up. Michael have lost their 2 best juniors to their intermediate team yesterday, Shane Harmon and Colin Beck. So that's surely going to give Burn Rangers a fierce advantage in that game.
Yep, and we move on to the junior a little bit later on in the programme as well, of course. But just in general, to touch on the progress of clubs that, you know, are either in growth phase or are looking to try and get back to where they were. So, like Burn Rangers, obviously in growth phase, and clubs that want to get back to where they were. I suppose there's a kind of a double barrel thing to this. So Carlow Town are looking to go back to where they were, but under 15 level stand there with them, who are obviously still in growth phase, and they won their championship. And all these things are great to see, because not only, you know, is it good to see a different club winning, it's a different club in a different part of Carlow as well. Like, and maybe it actually gets more north and, you know, a little bit further up the county, because the south of the county, there's never been too much of a bother there. There's always tradition, and it's always number one. So great to see. And just while we're on the topic of it, because like I know we're going to talk a little bit about Carlow Town intermediate level a little bit later, but let's bring up a comment there, because Ian Keneally got in touch with us there last week, and he made a very, very good point, lads, about Carlow Town when we were talking about the situation there. I actually don't have it to hand here at the moment, but pretty much it was along the lines of, you know, chaps having to decide at 12 o'clock, we could be here at 12 o'clock, under 12, when they're going to, you know, if they're going to choose hurling or football. Greg Cullen lads in particular, like, and if Greg lads have to choose at that point, like, the only option they have to play hurling underage is to go up to Abbey Leaks or somewhere like that. So it's not feasible. Yeah. So what happens to pack it in? And you'll probably see that a good bit in the CBS job, because all those chaps are there, and you'll have them on hurling panels, and probably quite good hurlers. So it begs the question, I suppose, is it time to start thinking outside the box? Like, how do we try and work out something to keep these lads, even if it is, like, should there be a kind of a, is there, I don't know if there even is a rule there. Is there a rule there in black and white to say you can't play in both counties? Or is there a kind of a loophole there to exploit to keep lads going? And just one last point before I get you to answer it. Greg Cullen, up until recent times, I don't know if they still do, but had a junior hurling team. So is that possibly also an Achilles heel to that suggestion?
I don't think. Yeah, no. I think what happens at 12 is that because they're registered officially. I think that's the first official registration at 12. Because if they are playing football with Greg Cullen, that's their kind of their hurling career gone. And Ian raised a very good point, because Ian is very heavily involved. He's often coaching there next door to myself there in the national school, so he's very heavily involved with the underage and would see it. And there's always good numbers there. And I suppose it is a massive pity, because you're putting a lot of good work into those lads, and they're very keen, they're interested. And and look, they want to play football with their their clubs as well. And obviously Greg Cullen for a lot of these lads is their club. And then they're caught in that bind where that they're lost to the hurling. I mean, look, to me it's a no-brainer. But look, we're great in Ireland. We make a lot of rules. Everything is a rule. Oh Jesus, everything with the COVID or everything with the GA. There's rules there. That's in black and white until something happens, and then we're great to change them. Or like we see in a disciplinary action, we always the GA prides itself in being a manly game, and suddenly then something happens, and the judges were, well, you didn't write the letter in Irish, so I'm not serving me ban, sort of thing. And I think we have to I definitely think in this case, you have to think outside the box. And probably even in a broader sense as well, in terms of our club alignments. Like, I suppose we talked briefly there a minute ago about the idea of our clubs. Some of the hurling clubs would have played the Kilkenny League and so on, and the idea of the Leinster League and so on. And we have to be progressive as well, and especially where we're not talking about we're talking about here, right, about underage players. We're talking about the lift that it would give Carlow Town. They're not being lost to another club. In other words, they are not. If they play hurling with Carlow Town, it's not like they're stripping a club in Laois of potential hurlers. Great Cullen don't have, currently don't have. They would have had in the past. They don't have underage teams, so they're not being stripped from other clubs. And we know the practicalities of it. You could turn around and say, "Oh, sure, there's hurling for them there in Laois, or there's in terms of Abbey Leaks or an amalgamation somewhere further on." But that's not practical. So we are losing these young lads to hurling. And look, to me, it's kind of a no-brainer thing. But obviously, the laws of the GA are so, as we know ourselves, and I suppose you saw, Kevin, yourself, in terms of training cross-border stuff and so on, the difficulties that are involved. But obviously, in the spirit of the game, wouldn't it be wonderful to allow those sort of crossovers to occur? I know you mentioned there about the junior team, and it can be a little bit of a, without say, I know that there is lads now hurling, maybe say from currently underage, who will be underage footballers with Tullow, who will be playing with Burn Rangers, and they're in a situation when they finish their underage hurling with Burn Rangers, they're going back into Tullow to hurl their adult grade, because Tullow are providing them with an adult team. And I know there was kind of mixed emotions there about that or whatever else, but that's the case there. But in terms of Greg Cullen, currently, I don't think they've fielded a junior hurling team in a number of years there, and it's a massive pity to see young kids lost to the game, where like I said, it's not going to make or break another club in another county, and ultimately it's going to make hurling stronger in our county, regardless of whether they're kicking football anywhere else. It's a pity, and it was a very good point raised by Ian, and I suppose, like I said, he sees it firsthand there, and it is a massive pity that these lads aren't being facilitated, but I suppose the rules are the rules.
Definitely, yeah. And just a reminder, lads, if you want to get in touch with us there, send a comment underneath the live stream post on Facebook and on Twitter. And we do have the capability to raise your point here. And in particular, I suppose, when it comes to Team of the Week, I'm guessing lads will have a say on that, and maybe Player of the Week nominations. So feel free to throw it in there, and we'll certainly get to those as well. And I mentioned for our sponsors, Corker and Precast, thanks. Again, very grateful to have them on board for the next number of weeks. So thanks to all and all the lads for that as well. But just to finish up on that point briefly, I mean, I'd love to go play a bit of junior hurling when they're breed still. I'd love to, and I can't do it, right? But that's fair enough. I'm fucking 30 and I'm only going to play in junior hurling. But young English up here in Cleston, Evan English, he's Niall English's young lad, right? And he, a couple of years back, was we're saying this lad's going to be one of the best hurlers Carlow ever had. And now he can't play with Carlow. And he's a great footballer as well, don't get me wrong. It's just a great pity, and hopefully something gets worked out there. And but some lads will also argue as well, there's enough hurlers and enough lads in the town already. and for different reasons they're not maybe playing. So look, it's another can of worms, and there's probably plenty of talk in it. But just to I suppose to reiterate what we were talking about last week, a bit of communication, a bit of dialogue would go a long way, and I'd love to see that. If someone, even if it's one of the GDAs or maybe our operations manager or something, can sit down and organise and facilitate a meeting with the football clubs and Carlow Town and involve Stanton in it as well, because in a few years' time, hopefully they'll be. You wouldn't know what happened. I don't know if it'll, if you will have two town clubs that at a level. We'll see what happens. Like, but if you have that conversation and get lads together, like it will go a long way. And at least have the conversation. That's all I'd say.
Yep.
You might gain something by having it. You gain feck all by not having it, and that's the long story short. So we'll move on then to like under 20s and stuff like that. So I think we're at semi-final stage on Wednesday, Joe. Cracking game last week, yourselves and Bidnestown. A draw in the end, was it 3-14 to 2-17 or something like that? So talk us through these semi-finals.
Yeah, we'll talk you through the competition first, maybe. I suppose, like, just to give people a flavour, because other years, or a lot of years, and we all would have played maybe under 21, it was at the time. It was kind of a straight knockout job. And in fairness, this year we had two groups where each club had 3 games. So give any of those lads on the margins of maybe on the fringes of junior, or sorry, on the fringes of adult teams, who maybe aren't making or getting much game time at junior or intermediate or senior with their clubs, to give them a chance to hurl at their own age. And I think it was a massive plus from the point of view of, right, like I said, you can look at it twofold. You can look at it if you are, say for us, if you're Jack Tracy, or for Bidnestown, if you're Jack McCullough or whoever else, where you're hurling, under 20 midweek and senior to weekend, right? There's a lot of headaches there. And if you're a manager, you're looking at it and you're saying, Jesus, I've X many senior players there. But on the flip side, there was a good number of players. I know, Stevie will probably vouch from an A point of view as well. There's a good few players maybe who aren't getting that level of hurling, and maybe and are going to be lost in the cracks, as I say. So it was a massive plus to see the competition ran on a group stage. I suppose there was the groups were kind of split into two. There was a kind of a strong group and a slightly weaker group then, and 3 teams came out of the stronger group to make the semi-finals, and then the winner of the second group came out as well. So again, there was a lot of incentives. On our side, there was ourselves, Ballinkillen, there was Naomh Eoin, and there was Bidnestown and Leinster Rangers, and absolutely massive tussles between us all. Only a puck of a ball really in any of the games. We drew our last game against Bidnestown there last Wednesday, but had we got a win, we would have actually knocked them out of the competition. But unfortunately, we left our run too late. We came from 7 points down after going into the last after the last water break, to bring it back to a draw in a mighty game of hurling in the McGrath Park. So on our side, we have Mount Leinster Rangers have gone through along with Naomh Eoin and Bidnestown Gales. And then on the far side, St. Mullins topped the far side. I think there was some good games on that side as well, Stevie, wasn't there, from your point of view, and that there was a lot of good competitive games.
St. Mullins are a bit stronger than the other 3 teams in it. Now we're playing Carlow on Wednesday night, and that was called off the first night because it was put on the same night as Ballinarana were playing their league final from last year. There was 2 players of ours on it, so that's a refixed game. And I actually don't know, because there was a bit of hoo-ha over a match last week, what way that went. Not the match last week, but I'm not sure what way the group ends up between the 3 teams after Wednesday night's result. But St. Mullins are clearly the strongest team in it. And the first was put to the clubs at the start that instead of having a 5 and a 3, that give the team that's in the second, or call it Group B or Group 2, whoever it was, that the winner that goes back up to the A, we call it. A bit similar to the old minor setup where the minor B champions went up to play in the A championship in the minor semi-final. So, like, St. Mullins are probably going to be the team, and they are, and best luck to them there. Yeah. They're playing. I presume they're playing the top team, are they?
They're playing Leinster Rangers in their semi-final, and then Bidnestown Gales playing Naomh Eoin. Yeah. I just on the flip side, Stevie, it's just a good point there. And again, it was raised after our podcast last week. It was good to see Carlow Town. I think it was the first time in 5 or 6 years, and they fielded in all their games, and actually were very competitive in the under-20 grade. A massive grade for them, where a lot of players kind of slip through the cracks in a lot of clubs, But I suppose especially for them, where they're trying to keep the transition from juvenile up to adult grade. So it was great to see. It was a great competition for them, to give them 3 meaningful games rather than kind of gathering. For every club, but especially for them, where you're trying to gather lads together. So when you kind of 3 weeks run, you kind of get a hook in lads. But the semi-finals themselves, like I said, there was literally a puck of the ball between the 4 teams, in our side. Mount Leinster Rangers pulled away from, again, just speaking from a Ballinkillen point of view. Mount Leinster Rangers kind of pulled away from us near the end of the game. In our group game, and there were, this massive game of hurling. Again, there literally will be a puck of the ball between these teams. Probably have to fancy Mount Leinster Rangers against. Again, I haven't seen much of St. Mullins, but Kieran Kavanagh and Vic Fitzpatrick and these lads will probably, Joe Dunn will probably drive Mount Leinster Rangers on there, probably over St. Mullins in the first semi, you'd have to imagine. And the second semi-final, God, I mean, it's so hard to call. I mean, look, Bagenstown, have a lot of senior experience there, and they have obviously Jake Doyle up front. They have Jack McCullough, Darren Nolan, Niall Bulger, massive spine to their team. Lots of other great chaps, Billy Fitzpatrick, lads like this, feeding into that team. So they've lots of experience there in terms of even senior experience. But they've all looked very sharp against us as well. I suppose you have Owen Hosey there will be a big man for them there as well. And they beat Bagenstown Gales in the group stage earlier on by a point, in a really, really close game. So again, that one's probably very, very hard to call. Probably if I was to call it, I'd probably go maybe marginally on the side of Bagenstown Gales. But again, it'll be probably even it'll be a time cost, as I say, in terms of how close that game will be.
Right. So just a question in as well on a slightly different note. But before I can bring it in now, because we're going to move on to talk about the Junior Hurling Championship. But a text in to say, ask the boys what they make of St. Mullins pulling out intermediate. They will probably win the junior handy now, having lost one player to Inters.
Well, look, I suppose,
because we are going to junior hurling next anyway. We're doing because we procrastinated last week about not being like a flagship TV show, and I still felt we were a bit heavy on the senior grade, and we maybe didn't give as much to the others. So we're starting with junior tonight.
But I think. Yeah, well, look, I suppose, we just to give people, obviously people know that they pulled out. It's unfortunate. Look, it's no, lads could be looking at it and say, oh, it's to do this or to do that or to win this. It's not really. It comes down to numbers, for any team to field three adult teams is a big stretch. And I know the field in their more or less their intermediate team. Or what was going to be their intermediate team in the Bulger Cup. And, I know that there wasn't many regrades in terms of this year, and they've lost a couple of lads. And, in terms of commitment, lads can, come and go year on year. And it just came down to a numbers thing with them, in fairness to St. Mullins. I mean, I don't think, they're a very honourable club and they do things right down there. I know Pat Murphy, who I worked with there this year, was the manager of the intermediate team. And, I know he thought long and hard, and the club did too, before they made any decision on it. It's purely a numbers thing, Kevin. I mean, it's unfortunate, but I suppose they have to make a call on it down there. You kind of, try to stretch. I know other teams have tried it. I know one year there, I think the first year that Mount Leinster Rangers brought up a junior team, they were kind of caught for numbers too, because it was just on that fine line between having plenty for two or a stretch of three. And it can happen like that in the clubs. I mean, look, St. Mullins have been fielding 3 teams there for the last good few years, and fair play to them, but look, if they do, they do. But that junior grade is going to be hard won, regardless of what happened up at intermediate level,
All right, so at the weekend, Palatine beat St. Patrick's 2-8 to 1-8, and Bagenstown beat Newbury 2-17 to 9 points. In Group 2, Burren Rangers 4-19, Carlow 5 points, and Mount Leinster Rangers 2-16, they've won 10 points. What's your thoughts, lads?
Well,
Stevie, do you want to jump in first? Seeing as you're at the grade here.
Yeah, the dishwasher might be done, Stevie.
Is it a washing machine?
I can't divulge that. We'll have to empty it, whichever it is. We played Bagnallstown on Friday night. What's that? 2-17, 9 points.
There's not someone in the background. I think we do have a slight delay up there. But
So Bagnallstown, they're a fairly well balanced team. Now, see, they lost Shane Cody there Saturday night. Alan Feile now was probably their main man up front. He scored, I think, 11 or 12 points. Probably got about 6 from play, 5 or 6 from play. Now, in fairness, Keelan Brendan at the far side scored 6 from play for us. But they just had a well balanced team. Now, there's a lot of young lads on it. When I seen the team sheet after, because you wouldn't know who's who with helmets, but they're a fairly young team, and it was a dirty old wet night, but they were a full value, like, and they'll go strong and win it, I'd say. But regards St. Mullins, like, I think they beat St. Mullins fairly well the week before, so lads saying, but St. Mullins win the junior, I wouldn't rule it out, but I'd be saying, but we'll know next Friday night our last game is against them, but I'd say Burn Rangers and Bagnallstown will have a say in before St. Mullins will.
All right,
yeah.
So
yeah. The other. Sorry, Kev, to go across you there. I was talking got a bit of info there on the PAL and Tullow game. So a good game of hurling. There was, I think, Sean Dermody very impressive for PAL, and I think they just about did enough. I think Tullow had a man put to the line in the first half, and but it was a very tight game. I think it was it 2-8 to 1-8. Very close game. I think what do you call it, Olin Duff got a goal, a double on a ball as well from a line ball in. I think that could have been the deciding score. But I think Cathal Murray was meant to be massively impressive for Tullow. I think he was their go-to forward. I can't remember what he scored now, but I think talking to one of the PAL lads there, they said, like, you know, most of the game went through him, and he's a fine hurler. He is a massive hurler up there, for them. So yeah, PAL probably will have something to say about it. All right. I think Pod O'Dwyer was playing. Pod back out the field. I think he was back out cornerback. So another year in Pod, Stevie. Surely another one in you. So, but yeah, obviously Burn Rangers having a big win as well. They kind of wanted to get their season back on track there with that, you know. I think the surprising result for me, and I called it last week, I thought it'd be a tighter game, would have been the Mount Leinster Rangers and Naomh Eoin game. I thought that might have been a lot closer. I think Leinster Rangers bet them fairly well in the end. I thought that would be a strong game, but you don't know who has lost what, in the game.
They've lost their two best players, I'd say.
Yeah. It's very hard to replace them. You know what I mean? You can't really, you know.
Shane Harmon and Colin Beck. They scored somebody scored 2-12 the week before against Carlow between them. So hard to replace them by using.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. Like it that's the good thing, I suppose, about the first teams. Like they'll keep who they have, and they'll keep taking over. I mean, I remember one year when we played G Steve, I think in the semi-final, and you'd given us, I think in the group game you'd given us a good bit of a walloping, but he lost a good few up the ranks, whereas we kind of held what we had, luckily enough, and we ended up nabbing in a semi-final one year. So it with the rounds coming, I think you were playing, Kev. Were you playing that year?
I was on the field.
You're on it. Actually, you were in front of me. I was in the goal, and you were at full forward, I think, at one stage. Oh yeah, I can't remember.
I think I was out centre. I was on the field. I wasn't doing much hard. Hold on. I was actually back from, I think it was at a full moon party in Thailand about 3 or 4 days before that.
Suspension?
Not this time, no. But
but I mean, like, look, you don't know who teams are going to lose. Like,
you're right. You're 100%.
So I mean, getting out semi-final. I'm not sure whether, I'm hoping 2 teams will come up from the junior up to intermediate. Like, I mean, it's only right. Obviously, you hope St. Mullins will maybe next year get things back in order in terms of their numbers, and maybe we'll be feeling again intermediate. But it'd be nice, it'd be nice be nice to have another team or 2 up there. It'd be great to have, if St. Mullins are going to be tight next year, wouldn't it be great for the 2 finalists to come up, like, or to bring up 2 teams if possible. But sure, look, we'll see how the next couple of rounds go.
Yep, and speaking of the next couple of rounds, so this week's fixtures, Friday night, 6:45 down in Kilbride, it is Burn Rangers and Navan. Jesus, there'll be a sting in that one. Was that supposed to take place 2 weeks ago, yeah?
Which one?
I remember calling out Burn Rangers and Navan very recently.
It was what do you call it? It was blown off near the end. There was an injury to one of the Burn Rangers player.
Sorry, yeah.
Real high scoring game. I think Navan had come back to within 2 points. I think it was 2 points. I think Burn Rangers were up by 2 points, and Navan were coming like a train. Now again, like what Stevie said there, with the 2 boys missing. I think I was talking to Jarlath Bulger there at a ladies football match last week, and he said he was happy enough it was blown up. He said, you know what I mean? He kind of Michael were coming very strong at the time, so maybe they might be glad of getting a second run at them. But you're lucky, you don't know.
Yep. So, yes, Stevie. All right, lad.
Every cup in the dishwasher is gone.
I said they're that, or the washing machines that they're exploding or something. I don't know what's going on. All again, clatter. Try and call 1 week and destruction derby the next week. You wouldn't cause much chaos playing junior hurling actually. But anyway, 6:45 Friday again. It is Binostown and Tullow, and then Nairn and St Mullins down in St Mullins. So there you have it. That's the Jack and Rory in terms of the junior hurling championship, and a great championship. I always really enjoy playing the junior hurling or intermediate or wherever grade we're at. Like, and more sort of junior, you didn't have to do a whole lot for. Intermediate, you kind of had to be reasonably fit and stuff. But junior, it's just so good. You go and the way I compare it now, and I don't know it's because you get a bit older anyway. But if you're going to play a junior game of any description, you go back to the whole primary school mentality when you're out playing soccer at break time. That's what I'm feeling now when I go to play a match. Whereas going back a few years ago, I was taking it too bloody seriously and not enjoying the game, and the game would pass you by. Jeez, you go out and enjoy it now. It's just like, you're there to have a bit of fun, like. And I think you do actually. It does take a while to learn that and develop that, like, regardless of what grade you're playing.
In fact, but clubs need it, like, I mean, there's always going to be for some clubs. We said there's the first team, and that that's the reality, and they're looking to move up the grades. But for other teams, like for other clubs, having the second team, you're always going to have the lad, the up and coming lad, the lad who's on the way down, the social hurler, the lad, and without having the second team and the other grades, I mean, all these lads are lost to the club, and it's not only as players. Like Stevie knows as well, they kind of haven't been involved in and is involved heavily in the run of the kind of admin side of the club. And if you're losing all these lads because they're gone from the club because they're not playing, like you're losing admin people, you're losing lads get involved with teams, etc. So having the junior hurling, apart from all the benefits to the lads mentally and physically, I think it's just savage hope to keep more lads in the club, that you can call on as volunteers and buy the odd lotto ticket and do whatever else needs to be done as well.
All part of it.
Part of it.
Yeah. So let's move on to intermediate then next.
That's the truth. 100% Joe.
Yeah, you may get that Viber sorted out there, Stevie. Remember using Viber, Kev, when it came out first.
Yeah, it was such a delay with it. God, yeah, it's like being an hour behind almost. But as I said, I won't comment on banning the goal again because it'll take too long to respond to me anyway. So there's no point. Like we'll just leave it at that. We will move on to the intermediate grade. So you guys are fairly well placed actually to talk about that because you were at each of the games at the weekend. So Joe, you were at the it was yourselves and Carlow. Was a 4-10 to 110, I think, in the end. Carlow won by. So have a chat with us about that.
Yeah, very even game, good game of hurling. Probably, like I said, it was probably the game both of us really wanted the target to win to get, to be the fourth semi-finalist out of the 5. Carlow's second game, I know they played Leinster Rangers the first week there and got a big beating, but I think they hadn't, they were kind of low on numbers. Now they didn't travel awfully strong to us in terms of numbers, but they had like 19, 20 players. Good game. Even Stephen kind of, 6 points apiece, I think was the first quarter break, a couple of points in it, second half or half time, and the third water break. But the goals killed us. In fairness, Lassie Meany got 2 very good goals for Carlow Town. I'm trying to think, you had Keane Clancy got 1, doubled on a good ball as well, and I can't think which of the English. I think it could have been Carroll, could have been playing. Trying to think which, full forward. Got the other one. So a little bit of quality won out. Now we had chances, but like, look, in fairness, Carroll Town had that good bit of quality. Jamie Ayres, one of my own chaps in sixth year, was very good. Set up a couple of the goals, really smart hurling. Mark Ayres' son there from Carlow Town. Really, really good chap. He was very busy. Conor Lawler was very good for Carlow Town as well, back at centre back. Very, very solid there as well. And look, I suppose, the best team did win on the night. We did no complaints there. Again, we were kind of down a couple of lads even again from the week against Nave Breed, and it probably didn't help our hand. But good game of hurling, and I think it'll give Carlow Town a bit of confidence to push on. I suppose ourselves, we were facing an uphill battle. We have 2 games left against probably the 2 strongest teams in it. So for us to get something out of either of them will probably be a stretch. But we'll keep at it. I suppose I'm looking for a few nuggets of advice now off Stevie about the other game and see where we can get something for next weekend.
Yeah, so was the Nave Breed selector on a scouting mission at the weekend? And if so, how did Michael and Rangers get on when you were out at it?
I had to hide in the ditch for a good part of it anyway, so I did come out. 114 to 15 points, Michael won, Nevon won. Usual suspects playing for Martin Clowry, Kevin Feile, a lad called Shane Kavanagh playing centre back. Pretty more experienced side. Yeah. He was gas in front of us. I was beside John McDonald there, Kevin Mack's father, and the ball popped up. One of the Michael lads or the Montreal Rangers has about 10 minutes gone, and Shane Kavanagh put his hand the very same as he's taking an apple off a tree. Just it was gas, the way it popped up, and he just in like and gone with it. The goal. Kevin Foley got a goal for about quarter of an hour, 20 minutes. Caught it in the edge of the square in a bit of a melee and got both to it, and that was the difference in the wind up. But there was nothing in it. There was like more or less range. We know there were a lot of young lads on it. Tyke Dorn, Evan Cayley, Joe Dundon. But Derek Byrne was very good from place balls. Luke Roach wasn't playing. I think he was injured. Colin Beck was very good for Nevon and wing back. I was looking at this number 7, John McEdwarn, before the match. He was very impressed with this lad in the warm up, and as the game went on, the better he got. And I asked Tommy Murphy after who it was. I didn't know who it was. Tommy was over the far side, obviously, on the Michael terrace there. The roars were getting louder as the game went on. They got a bit of a spurt about 10 minutes to go. Michael got about 4 points in a row to Kevin Hosey was midfield. He was fairly accurate with the frees as well. So it was right good game. Now, Monash Rangers lads sent off about 5 minutes to go, second yellow, nothing major. He was the fullback, one of the Tobins. So Frank Foley was in the goal from Monash Rangers. Willie Hickey, I said the usual suspects on both sides. They've lost 3 from their first game against us. Jack Ryan went up to senior on Saturday night. Now there was no subs used on either side, so that's telling you that there was a joint match between the 2 teams yesterday evening. I'd say both teams are looking at going, right, we have enough lads gone. We want to make sure we have enough for this evening for that game. But one thing I did say, I met the 2 Kavanaghs going in there, Hall Kavanagh's 2 lads, Michael and Jack. We're just saying it's great that these matches are actually in home and away venues. You know, it's a bit match at, it was at 11:30 or 12 o'clock, and you know, a bit of a bite to it as well. You know, there was no quarter asked or given, and you know, it's all right. As Joe said, Ballinkillen are playing the 2 strongest teams in the last 2 games, so they've played us already. We're grand now.
Right, so it'll bring us on to this weekend's fixtures. Stevie, I'll keep you while I have you, because I know this thing is there's a bit of a delay with it, but you are obviously playing Carlow Town on Sunday at 6 o'clock in Carlow Town. What's your prospects?
Yeah, sure. Look, Joe said like they got a hockey in against Munster Rangers. They had more lads back last week, so like we played them in the Bulger Cup now. And the names he's mentioned there, was none of them playing that game, so we have to go in and try and win that game. Simple as that.
Yeah.
So Navan Ballinkillen, 4:00 out in Michael on Sunday as well. Tasty one.
Tasty, yeah. Sure, look, it'll be, by the way, Stevie, I wasn't running down the breeder and there. Just I'm trying to let you come in under the radar. Jesus, man, will you take it? Will you take a hint, Mike? Huh? There's no hint given there, no hint taken anyway.
I don't know. Delay is as bad as he rattled the laptop off. He's a wrestler to steal.
I know, but look, we're hurling Navan. Look, we'll be under pressure. We're kind of, we have a little bit of experience, in fairness, in our team, with Darryl Roberts back. Now, Darryl was only at hurling the goal at the weekend, just carrying a knock, and, likes of Mikey Butler and that, Jack O'Connor, Tommy Cox, a little bit of experience, but we're very young. A lot of lads there who are, kind of trying to make a step up, and, kind of lads then who are kind of, from last year's junior team, we're down again, stripped really a lot, and it's just a pity the year we came up that we didn't have kind of give it a, not that we haven't given a good rattle at, and it's just a pity we hadn't got more bodies maybe available to us. But that's but we're enjoying it, and we're I suppose regardless of how the year goes for us, and even how Sunday or the following week goes for us, we're going to be making our case to stay up intermediate, because you can't beat hurling at the higher level, if you get me. It's just better, better standard to bring lads through up onto the senior grade. And look, sure, we'll give Sunday a go. I think we could be short a few bodies with holidays and different things happening. So look, probably Navan will have to be favourites there, but look, we'll go and give him a good rattle at anyway. All
right, time to move on to senior lads. I was delighted to be back in Netwatch Cullen Park on Saturday evening. Really strange. First game, sun splitting the stones, t-shirt weather, maybe Onslow weather, as in wearing a vest. Stevie decided to wear a t-shirt, and then for the second game, it pissed over it. Absolutely pissed over. In the space of 2 hours, you go from just unbelievable weather to a monsoon. But yeah, it was great to be back, just to have the buzz back. And now we can relate to what you guys were talking about. Would have loved to have been there the weekend before, as you said, but geez, it was just great. Absolutely brilliant. The buzz on the terrace, the banter, and seeing those faces, as you said, everyone's so welcoming. I really enjoyed it, I have to say. And okay, right, the first game was one-sided, which we'll get to. And then the second one we'll also get to, obviously. But it was kind of a tale of two halves, and some really good hurling played in it. But we'll start with Ballinkillen and Bindlestown Gales. So Bindlestown Gales won this one 217, 13 points. And as we said already, we do have an interview with Gavin Nolan up on our pages there already. It's on Facebook, it's on Instagram, it's on YouTube as well. And also Conor Phelan. And tonight we are going to hear from Alan Corcoran, Owen Larkin and Marty Mouse Kavanagh, as we said. But just to give a brief little summary on the game first, lads. I felt the first quarter was crucial. I think it was 1-4 to 4 points. And you're looking at, a 10-point margin in the end. But in that first quarter, Ballinkillen missed, I'd say 3 or 4 kind of relatively scoreable opportunities for points, and kind of balls up a goal chance as well. So they went from possibly, it could have been 1-7 to 1-4 very easily to Ballinkillen at that point. But it was Bindlestown 1-4, Ballinkillen 4 points. And Bindlestown push on from there. The goal for me, the first goal, Danny Doyle, lovely combination. He had a great game. But a lovely combination with Styler. Flicked it across to him. Styler spotted him going back again. And great finish, So, I suppose, where do you start? Joe, I'll actually start with you first, because let's be honest about it. You were a bit down in the dumps Saturday night, Tell us why you were feeling that way.
Well, sure. Look, I suppose, obviously, look, it's a results-driven game, and while we went in knowing that we were down X and Y, ultimately, like we said the last week, and I know Owen Larkin and the lads aren't looking to who we don't have; they're looking to the lads who we do have, and I just thought, yeah, like you said, just a lot of things didn't work for us on the day. The first quarter, like you said, like we had chances, put a few bad wides. Very unlucky. The two walls nearly combined for a goal chance. Craig slipped a hand pass out to Jamie, and probably maybe just a yard, maybe in front of him, or maybe Craig, could have popped it himself, but tried to do the right thing, popped it out to Jamie, and it just ran away from him, and he pulled the ground stroke and it went wide. And I think from that as well, there was one score that stands out in my mind as well. It was a good ball into our forwards, and a good touch. I think it could have been Niall Whelan, a good enough touch. He killed the ball relatively well, and was just about to put his hand down to it. And Alfie came in. I think if you can remember, came in and just snuck it away from him, went up the field, popped it over the bar. I think it might have been the first time they went into the lead, as far as I remember.
And the goal came soon after that.
And it just gave him a lift. And it wasn't that anything. This is not anything to do with Niall or anything like that. But it was just kind of symptomatic of our day that. Bagenstown were far more eager, far more hungry. I think in the first half, I think we lost. I'd say we nearly lost every puck out, under every puck out, both theirs and ours. We got blown away in the breaks as well, and I think that was kind of disappointing from the point of view of you probably don't mind being beaten. If you've kind of really, really emptied the tank and and have really have battled, but I think we probably lost. If we were to go back into stats, looking at breaking ball or ones on puck outs, etc., or rooks, etc., I'd say we got we lost a huge amount of them, and it kind of gave Bagenstown Gales the emphasis to drive forward, give them that energy going forward. I think what kind of came to the fore as well, as we spoke about it last week, was the Bagenstown Gales scoring threat. Very impressive, I thought Danny Doyle, I know he's been quietly effective, last year and this year, but I really thought he was smashing at the weekend, smashing. I mean, for the goal, it was kind of a ball that was won over, over near us where we were standing actually, and there was kind of a 1-2 played, but in the space of the 1-2, where Danny gave it back to Styler, and then Styler flicked it on. Danny had put kind of 20 yards between himself and the Ballinkillen man, and there was only. Right from putting my neutral hat on, not my Ballinkillen hat on, but it was great to see that, rather than them tapping the ball over the bar, that this year, that they're going for goal. They were going for the juggler. There was nothing else on his mind, and the same when Styler got his ball, there was nothing else on his mind, only to go for goal. That was it. There was nothing else in their mind. And like I said, taking my Ballinkillen hat off and whatever else, but putting my hurling hat on, my Carlow hurling hat on, for Bagenstown Gales to get to challenge Mount Leinster Rangers, to challenge St. Mullins, to step it up again from last year, challenge ourselves, to challenge whoever in Navan, but to step it up again, that was encouraging to see. Do you know what I mean? That they were willing to try win the game, to do things like that, whereas last year they hadn't. Their spread of scores was excellent again, and I think Stevie made a good point there last week. It was Pat Cody made a good point last week, and I think it was proven again this week that they finished like a train. The subs that they brought in, I think Jake Doyle got 4 points for them. Had an amazing game when he came in, and lads around us were kind of talking about, would he not be started? And apart from the argument of a lad being young or not, he's a lot of games, he's actually playing under 20, but I think don't take credit. It's unfair not to credit the work of, say, the likes of James Doyle and David Corcoran are doing in that team, because I know we talked before about maybe their other forwards, they had one time that a line there, Keelan Guider, Jake Doyle and Andrew Kane, you wouldn't, speed, where would you get it, around the county? But, the likes of David Corcoran and James Doyle were after battering our lads for, 40, 45 minutes at this stage, and it kind of worn them down and put a lot of the groundwork in place for these lads to come in and get the scores. But look, getting back to it, Bagenstown have been very impressive this year. I really think their pace was exceptional. I do think we were a little bit exposed, no more than we talked about it at the start of the programme with Limerick and Cork. I thought there was a huge gap between our lines, and any ball in then was a good ball and put our backs under pressure. And then on the flip side, I thought, that Alfie, in fairness, and around our middle of the field, they were fierce, well organised Bagenstown. Even when we had Sean Murphy on, even though he got a couple of balls and he looked a little bit dangerous at times, they were never really in danger of coughing up a goal. They were kind of had that ruthlessness about them and that organisation about them. And I think that was very impressive as well, because, like I said, the game this time last year, they were very open. I know, and we cut through them for scores, and I know our goal that day was a bit fortuitous, but we cut through them for scores. Whereas this year, their backline was very, very tight, very disciplined. I know we spoke ourselves in our old WhatsApp. I was very impressive. Like we mentioned last week about who'd step in for Darren Nolan, and I thought Cian Doyle would deputise really well at full back. I thought he was rock solid, came out with a lot of ball as well. But look, yeah, full value for a win, I think. I don't think anyone would question that. But like, I suppose, getting back to your original point, it could have been a different game maybe had we got those couple of scores at the first quarter. But saying that, like, Bagenstown Gales were full value for a win, I think.
They were indeed. So, as I said, we have Alfie to show the viewers here, and indeed the listeners who will be tuning in tomorrow on Spotify, Apple, etc., because we'll get that up on that platform or those platforms in the next couple of hours. Sure, we don't. What do we need sleep versus you? But anyway, we'll talk to Owen Larkin here first. Owen Larkin, a disappointing afternoon, I suppose, to be honest about it. The hairdryer was out at half time. Do you feel you got a bit more of a reaction in that second half, or what's your thoughts immediately after?
No, I don't think we got too much out of the second half, so obviously the hairdryer didn't go too well, but look, I just disappointed, I suppose, the way the lads trained over the last 2 weeks. I thought there was a big performance coming and just didn't seem to materialise.
Do you have to accept that there's a bit of realism here too when you are shorn of some key players, or for you is that an excuse at this point?
No, absolutely, that's no excuse. We've worked with what we have. The lads that have been out injured have been out for a good while. Kieran is out for the year. We're getting a couple of lads back, but like, it's no excuse. I know there's a couple of young lads there, but still, the basics are still there. They're still well able to hurl, they're able to win the ball, and they just didn't do it tonight.
So I suppose the plan now, and it's very hard to say straight after the game, just go back and reassess, plot. Do you feel, even considering what you have available to you at the moment, that you're anywhere near hitting your potential? Because if you're to ask me, I don't think you are still, even though you are down a few players.
Yeah, no, we're nowhere near the potential, I think, that's in the group. I have great belief in them. Like I said, they've trained very, very hard over the last 2 weeks, and over the last 3 or 4 months, however long we've been back, they've trained very hard, but they just don't seem to be able to take it to the match day, and that's something we'll have to go and look at and see why. Obviously, I don't have the answers at the moment. We'll have to have a conversation about it and look at the reasons, but it'll be hard to put a finger on it, I suppose.
I know you leave no stone unturned anyway. It's been a while since we spoke. I'm sorry it's not better circumstances, but good to chat to you nonetheless, and thanks for your time, alright?
Okay.
Alright, so that was Owen Larkin, and a couple of things struck me, and I did ask him about them. Like, I don't actually feel that, given the fact, even though they're down so many players, that they are getting the best out of what's remaining, and Owen agrees with that as well. But I also, Joe, I know you have different views on this to me now, right? But I don't think your guys are playing in their natural positions and their best positions. And I think where you disagree, and you can fight your corner now in a second, is that lads need to be adaptable, right? But for me, calling a spade, the best fullback in the championship last year and the county fullback is playing centre back for his club, right? And he didn't go well the other day. He's one of my good friends, and he won't mind me saying it because he probably knows himself. He's not playing as good as he can. David English is playing midfield, probably one of the best centre backs to ever come through the county. I know he's playing midfield for the county as well. And I know there was switches in the game later on. Dion pushed up and maybe around the middle a little bit, and then went in full forward, and David came back centre back. And fair enough, it didn't really work. But you need to get the foundations right, and I don't think they are. I think the balance was off. And the other thing was, when I loved the whole prospect of Dion and Sean Murphy in a 2-man full forward line, but when that happened, there was no one actually able to deliver the ball in. But if those other guys are there, he's Helion now as well as dishwasher. Anyway, when those other guys are there, it's a different story altogether. The ball can go into them. So you differ from that point of view, and explain why you differ.
Yeah. I suppose we did argue or chat about it. Well, I suppose sometimes it can be a case of horses for courses, in the game, Look, we were missing Micheál at the weekend, Micheál Ryan, and Micheál, in fairness, he's hurled centre back, he's hurled wing back for the club, but in fairness, he would have done a lot of hurling at full back as well. So I suppose what that might mean, it does give us the option to push out a little bit. And when you are, I suppose, maybe missing who we're missing, you kind of, I know there's the argument for kind of building from the back and being solid, but ultimately, if you don't push on or you don't try to create stuff, you don't win games. And I suppose, in fairness to the management, they were looking, and in fairness to Micheál, had a very good game the first day. I know he was, like I said, he was missing there against Bagenstown, but had a very good game the first day. And I suppose maybe the last day they were looking at it in terms of, look, maybe inside they were looking at, well, Bagenstown would have probably lined up with a bit of speed in there. And I suppose, look, Lauren Kinsella would have hurled in as full back before and in the full back line as well. And I suppose, the lads are looking at it from the point of view of, as well, from the Bulger Cup, if you take the Bulger Cup final, and I know a couple of challenge games as well that they played, that lineup worked really well, if you get me. And I like I said, just taking a Carlow game, particularly in the Bulger Cup final, like, that setup would say, we mentioned two players specifically, say Dion and David, were very impressive, at further out the field. I suppose, like everything, look, it's going to work some days, it's not going to work other days. I don't think that, like, the lads aren't a stranger, neither lad is a stranger to hurling out there either. Like, Dion would have hurled, while the last year or two he's maybe been back in full back, but he would have hurled centre back before, and David as well, not maybe a bit out around the middle of the field, but again was very impressive for the county. There 3 games this year out around midfield, so it's not like it's complete new territory to the lads. I don't think our problems necessarily were the positioning of those two lads, because I don't think that's, while we can argue the toss about one or two things, I think it's kind of maybe there's other things need to be tweaked there. And like we had some positives, in fairness, from the game. Like you can see, I suppose, when Sean Murphy came in, he gave us that bit of a presence in around the forward line. And I suppose maybe that's kind of the reason maybe why some of the lads are being pushed a little bit further up the line, to give us a bit more of a presence maybe further up the field. I suppose, like I said, it was from Owen's point of view there as well. Like, I know the lads have trained hard, like, over the last couple of weeks, and are putting in the effort, and it's frustrating from their point of view not to get the performance out of it. But I think the more frustrating thing for them maybe was, like I said, just how maybe how many breaks and how many different little things that we lost there. I think those are something that you're kind of, we can always argue toss about players and position and what ifs and whatever, but like, those are kind of cornerstones of winning any game. Winning the breaks, winning the puck out, stuff like that. And I think in fairness to Bagenstown, they completely overawed us, in most of those areas. And I think that was a bigger concern for me, or a bigger thing to be baffled about, than necessarily the positioning of the lads. Just on that, and I know we'll talk about it there later. I mean, look, you can see the little bit of a lift, like we said, that we got from the couple of lads, like, Niall Hickey, we said there. I know we talked about him. We'll be talking about him maybe later on in the program as well. He got 3 great points in play from midfield. Yeah. There's a lad coming back in. He missed a bit of hurling there. Obviously, was a key figure for Kildare footballers, and he's kind of back in the fold now. And Sean Murphy is kind of has now got 25 minutes of game time under his belt as well. And again, you could see while some things didn't work for him, you could see the little bit of threat that he gave as well. And and these are the things that we're missing. That we maybe missed the first game, and we're only kind of getting back in. So look, like we said, we can argue the toss over where lads are. I think it's just, and especially going forward for next weekend. I mean, if we don't up that work rate, that intensity massively, I think we're going to be steamrolled at the weekend, and that's not, that's kind of putting it fairly bluntly, but I think it's the reality that if we turn up with that type of work rate at the weekend, we're not going to be within an ass's row of Leinster Rangers.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Bagenstown now again, just for anyone out there that thinks we're talking about this from a heavy Ballinkillen point of view, but we are focusing on Bagenstown at the moment. Yeah. But just a couple of last points on Ballinkillen from where I saw it. Attitude was one thing that I didn't think was on par at all with Bagenstown, but it wasn't. The work rate was poor. Like, you got that spot on. But the other thing is, there's a clear difference in how Ballinkillen are actually trying to play. Like last year, there was a very much a running game. And one little feature of that was, I suppose, regularly I would see a little 1-2 between Thomas Dowell and Dion. so that Tom was short and then back to Tom again, and maybe he torpedoed it anyway. But it was a little bit one-dimensional and maybe a bit direct at times or whatever, whereas last year they were going through the hands quite a lot. Now, in the Bulger Cup, I don't know, was that still the plan, and did it just change the other day? Is it more of a direct style in general? And is that going to work? You have a lot of guys who are very fit, a lot of young lads. I think young Lomax there, loads of pace. Tracy, loads of pace. Hickey's well able to run. Do you look at that and try and go back to it, I suppose, or do you think Owen will, or is it still going to be more of a direct thing? And look, just put a caveat out there, I suppose. By going direct in the first quarter, it did work a little bit too, so we can't just say that it's not completely, not working at all, I should say. But is that something that maybe they should look at, and can they revert to it? Can they revert back to it in a short space of time?
Yeah, well, look, I don't think it was, I don't think it was a complete change of style. In fairness, I think sometimes on the pitch the lads play what's in front of them, and unfortunately when the pressure is on, sometimes you can maybe change the game on the field. You know what I mean? You kind of you become panicked a little bit, and I think some of that was maybe some of the case. But again, some of that, sometimes too, when you're playing that running game, I know that they would have players, even against St. Mullins, would have tried to work through the lines, or especially around midfield. And, sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But look, I think that's not, apart from, like we said there, we're focusing on Ballinkillen's woes or problems. Let's not take credit away from Bagenstown. Their hassling was immense. Like I said to you there, I picked that incident, and again, it wasn't highlighting any bad play from Niall Ranton, a fantastic young lad, junior hurler of the year last year, all ends up in the county, but just literally, Alfie just in there like an absolute beaver, waiting to win that ball, and then going for the juggler, by tapping it over the bar. Bagenstown's work rate, sometimes it's no more than yesterday with Cork and Limerick. If you're a team and you're dominant, you try to make the other team bend to your will. And, I think Bagenstown, in fairness, set the tempo for the game. Their half forward line, they're full, even in their full forward line, they're hassling, and it was non-stop right to the end. You look at the scores like that, say the last couple of scores that they got, some of them were from turnovers, some of them were lost causes, balls into the corner, where they never gave up, even though they were 6 and 7 points up at this stage. And, I think not to belittle Bagenstown's work rate, as much as we might be disappointed with our work rate and with our maybe game and how maybe our style didn't work on the day, flip it another way, flip it back to what we said, flip it back from a Bagenstown point of view. Wouldn't you be happy with that? Look at the things that they've improved on from last year in terms of their scoring power. Look at the players that they've got back, the options that they now have off the bench, their style of play. I would call it, like I said, Alfie was kind of like a textbook, a real textbook county centre back. Obviously, he is county material.
Might hear from him now when they're talking about.
Yeah.
Alan Corcoran, Bagenstown on the crest of a wave, 217 to 13 points. Another very good performance. Very impressive, I have to say. How did you assess yourself?
Yeah, it went well. I thought we were actually sluggish enough in the first half. Things weren't sticking as well as we'd like, but in fairness, while the ball was sticking, our work rate was kind of there throughout the game and kind of paid off in the end.
Some really good scores, in fairness. The goal in the first half in particular from Danny Dial, I thought, was a very sweet move. He gathered possession, obviously played a little bit of a 1-2, I think, with Styler, got it back, and a great finish. And then in the second quarter he pushed on again, and yeah, a very impressive performance all round, it has to be said.
Yeah, Danny is probably more known as a soccer man, but he's given a lot the last couple of years to the G and Town. In fairness, his work that he's doing off the scene is paying dividends there on the pitch today, and a great goal by him. He brings an awful lot of work rate and kind of work rate to the team too. But overall, I'd say, yeah, we were pleased enough. The boys that came off the line did their job too, and look, we're in good position, but absolutely nothing won yet. We have a lot of work to do still.
Scored a nice point yourself in the first quarter. You wouldn't be known for your point scoring abilities, but you did lift the team, in fairness, and it was off the left as well, a sweet one, Al.
No, they'd be fairly scarce now. But a matter of hitting the hole, but sure, look, went over, I'll take it.
And just lastly, to finish up, I mean, you must be delighted to be back. I know you had a long road and you missed a lot of hurling and football actually, so obviously very pleased to be back among the thick of it again.
Yeah, it was a long year off, but in fairness, did a bit of work there behind the scenes. The games are getting that bit harder too, but sure, look, we're where we want to be.
There you are. What a legend, fairness though, like, geez, he's some servant. And yeah, he really led the way, and the blend did really work again, you know, the youth and experience. And I was very impressed with him. As much as you've been talking about him here the last few weeks, I hadn't actually seen them properly. and it was very, very impressed with them.
Their diamond around the middle was very good. Like you talk about experience there. Like you'd Beanie, some teams, sometimes the experience with older lads that they're there, but they don't bring it, if you get me. But like you look at the boys in the middle, like that diamond there, like you'd Beanie who's been excellent all year. You have like Alfie slotting in there at centre back. You have Styler, obviously, like as good as nearly, looking as good nearly as he ever was, and really being leading lights of the team. Not just kind of being there and 20 minutes, man, and whatever else. Like really, really, really powerful performances by them, and I think that lifts them as well. And all those lads we talked about last year, they're another year senior experience, like, and it makes a huge difference. And again, the couple of lads they have back as well, like Andrew Kane is a massive addition to that team. He got a couple of points, I think, again, and he's work rate and he's scary quick. Adds a huge dimension. Jake Feile coming up as well. They have forwards now. And I think they'll hurt teams. If they keep that work rate and intensity going.
I agree. Stevie, do you want to jump in? That delay might have changed since we started sharing videos. So them clothes they're obviously on a 60 watt for about 3 hours, because I can still hear them going there in the background. But jump in anyway and give us your opinion.
Yeah, well, nice to see Bagnestown in the flesh after all it heard without seeing our game. But very impressed with them from 1 to 15. They have a good balance of experience, even though they're not an all team. Like even Andrew Casey, these lads, they've played a Bay County as well, underage and Bay Senior as well. And it does make a difference. But Danny Doyle was very impressed with him. I thought where Kieran Whelan was kind of a link man with Ballinkillen last year, Danny Doyle was kind of slightly similar to the other night. I thought the amount of balls he got on our side in the press box side there, he just literally pop him off the hurl, hand pass off, move the thing on. I was very impressed with the maturity of more than Nelson. Like the goal, Jersey, he didn't half bury the goal. Like it was like Styler got a goal, and you'd be expecting now with Styler when he gets a chance, but just Danny's one. Thomas Dowell never seen it. Like so. Regards of Jack Doyle not starting, just grandly of Milky and David Corcoran, as you said, Joe, kind of soften up lads, and then the boys finishing like and Keelan Guider as well. Yeah. Probably been on county under 20 and senior panels there. I came in and made a big impact. I thought he'd been starting some games and probably not getting on as well. And maybe you're finishing probably had 20 minutes the other day, and I'm very impressed with him. Yeah. He's after filling out, and you're seeing a bigger, stronger version of it. He's probably, I see 2021. I'm afraid after saying Andrew Kane was 26 a couple of weeks ago, and he was only 23. So, but so there.
Keelan is 20, I think.
Regards Ballinkillen, like Jamie Wall, anyway, not too far out. Craig Wall's hand pass to Jamie, like, was a. If I'd have went in, ifs and buts make pots and hands, but we know who we over job at that stage. But
about 20 minutes.
That goal didn't go in. The goal didn't go in, so Alfie's interception then as well. When he got the ball into his hand, like, and next minute he sees the road in front of him, and he casually passes it over the bar, comes back up, and suddenly it's 4 points. And but the spread of scores, like, and they were shooting from probably better positions than Ballinkillen did. Their shot selection was probably better. And I suppose when you're from winning 2 games, these things are going to come more natural to you. Ballinkillen, if you're losing a game or 2, 1 game was it? You're a bit more desperate without meaning to be desperate. You're shooting that will possibly. I know Limerick yesterday probably shot 14 or 15 wides, but they were scoring 32 points as well. So, yeah, Bagnestown, very impressed with them. Then Morris Rangers come out in the first half, the second game, I know we're going to talk about that later. And then you see Bagnestown are where they are. There's still another rung on the ladder to go still.
Yeah, and I'm glad that was actually going to be the segue into the second game, right? Because while we opened the programme by saying it was probably the best half of hurling we'd seen in an All-Ireland final by Limerick, that first quarter, and we haven't been looking at quarters in hurling for a very long time, lads, only the last 2 years, it was literally an exhibition. 1-11 in that period, like in 15 minutes, 1-11 to 3 points, I believe. And that was in the pisses of rain as well, like. You know, it wasn't like it was the same weather as the game before that. I just thought Rangers in that period were awesome. They were slick, like, and as I fully agree with you, Stevie. While Ballinkillen or while Bindstown were so impressive, like Rangers were up a gear for that period now. That was a serious gear. Is that maintainable over a longer period? I'd say it is. I'm really looking forward to the game between the two of them, and we will come to that a little bit later as well. So let's crack on to that game. Like, as you said, yeah, they're just awesome. Like, Rangers were awesome in the first quarter. St. Mullins couldn't get near them. Like, literally could not get near them. John Nolan finished off the goal. The points just kept pop, 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 pop. That's 12 scores in 15 minutes. Like, that's no joke. It's actually 15 scores in 15 minutes in general, because obviously St. Mullins got 3 points as well. Like, they didn't know what to do. And I think even up as far as half time, maybe, like, St. Mullins were still a little bit at sea. What was it at half time? Was it 2-14 to 7? And I think they got the grip then in the third quarter and outscored Rangers 8 points to 3. And in the end, it did finish 221 to 20 points. So I think St. Mullins, did they outscore maybe by a point in the last quarter as well? Like, while they came back into the game, like, what's going on there?
Not me this time.
It's not you this time. It's taking Nolan over there. I don't know what was going on.
It's Joe's jamming.
Yes, please don't be. I tell you, if you want someone to play music, we get Dave O'Neill or something on there. Don't be that.
Oh, I was only touching the screen. I was taking cobwebs off the screen here.
Oh, jeez. Take over your wallet there, yeah. Anyway, back to the game. The point I was going to make, while St. Mullins played at a very good standard in the second half, like, would you, Joy, I think you would go off into me again for this, but Stevie, it's a question I was kind of thinking in my own mind, like, the level of St. Mullins hurled at in the second half, was that on par or better than what Bindstown showed?
Hard to gauge, because look, you got your fix at half time. James Doyle was moved up the field straight away. He's fouled. He brought off, I think he got 2 yellow cards off of Michael Doyle, and someone else brought down. Rich could say, look, the game was effectively over at half time, if you can say that, with Munster Rangers and St. Mullins a 13-point lead. Like O'Shane Ryan, 6 points in play. I like he played against us in the Bulger Cup.
I'm going to bring you back to the point before we talk about it. Are they on par with Bindstown's performance, or was that performance better? It was piss and rain as well, like.
Yeah, well, that's the Bindstown physicality is going to be questioned in a couple of weeks, and that's not giving you an answer. As in, St. Mullins scored. What did they score? The second half, you said they won the second half by 6 points.
15 points, yeah, the second half.
Must be a TD.
With James Dale going forward, if James Dale is wearing 11 or 14 going forward, it would have been on a par with Bangstown's first. Bangstown's display going forward, but but they never threatened to get a goal, and Rangers were, cute enough. Right, James Doyle, stop him out there, let Keogh tap it over the bar, keep the scoreboard ticking over. There's no goal going in. Michael Doyle took him down once, and someone else took a yellow card took one for the team. And then Mullins to go up and got 2 or 3 points near the end, just to bring it back to the, he was down to 4 points at one stage, ended up set, so it's horses for a course at that stage. Keep the scoreboard, the 2 goals. They got the first half, like John Nolan. He's a frightening prospect. If he's left in a full forward line in there, he's Chris Lissley gets 4 or 5 points in play, and that's like saying, you're taking that for granted. And Dennis Murphy he'll get 5 or 6 in frees at least, and a couple from play, possibly might pick up one the other day. Now you're suddenly up to 120, and that's what Bangstown are going to have to, and St. Mullins, whoever's going to be, they're going to have to get that more.
Yeah, plain and simple. So we can kind of talk about individual performances a little bit here now. And from, like, John Nolan got 2-6 from play. It's outrageous stuff. Like, this is going to sound a little bit ridiculous. I'm not surprised, because I know he's capable of doing it, right? But for me, the most impressive player on show, even though he scored 6 points less in theory, was Oisin Ryan, because I didn't expect that from him. He blew me away. Like, he was taking ball out of the sky. He was leading the charge. And actually, in that period in the first quarter, I think he got a score. And one high ball as well from a puck out, like, and 6 points from play for a lad. Do you know what, like, you don't expect 2-6 from John Nolan, right? But you know he's capable of it, right? And maybe it's just my own ignorance that I didn't know much about this Oisin Ryan chap. But he literally came like a ball from the blue and reminded me of Conor Whelan, red helmet and everything, left hand on top, first instinct, drive at the goal, good paw, and showed real leadership at a time when they were struggling and kept it going throughout the 60. So that's what really impressed me. And incidentally, the two lads are nominated for Player of the Week, along with Craig Doyle, which we did put out to the Twitter poll, so we'll be announcing that in a little bit. But yeah, like Steve, you were standing beside me for it, and you kind of touched on Oisin Ryan. He was unbelievable. You kind of touched on John Nolan. He was unbelievable. But I mean, the pattern of play, I was driven demented in the first half with St. Mullins, because it reminded me of last week, I think, on the podcast, when we were talking about the balance of the team and where lads should be playing, and Joe and Pat were talking about it, right? And actually, do you know what? It's probably a good time. I asked Mouse this question, so I have to go an alternative route in bringing this up to the screen. So just bear with us for one moment. We have to go screen share this. We didn't get the upload on time, so just bear with us one sec, and we'll bring her up. All right, there we go. Mouse Kavanagh, unfortunately, obviously, you're out injured. We've known that for some time. It's just kind of nearly, I'm not going to say management, because you're not in the management team, but there's a little flavour into maybe what could be happening. In the second half, with James going to centre forward, with Paddy going back. In my opinion, like, Michael Welch can play centre back, Ger Cody can play centre back, Paddy can play centre back, James can play centre back. But like, the boys will hate me now for saying it, can any of them play centre forward as good as James Doyle though? Paddy we know is a forward, but James just gives that threat, and when he runs, he causes problems. And we saw it literally 5 seconds into the second half, free straight away. So I just felt that balance maybe worked in your favour.
Yeah, no, look, I suppose, like, what changes in the second half, came going up close to the goal. Like, we all know what James' ability going forward, and the speed he has, and the strength of the man. Like, it's going to could cause trouble to any backline in the country. Like, so obviously, look, him close to the goal, it is good for us. But look, he is very good at centre back as well. Like, so again, look, that's not my decision to make, or I'm not going to make a call on that now. But look, whether he's a 6 or 11, he's a huge impact to the game anyway. So look, we'll see what we are going forward, what the plan is. But look, it was great for him. Now, look, we've kind of seen what he was about again now with forwards there. But look, we'll see Saturday.
How far away are you?
Look,
apart from about 3 foot away from me at the moment, but in terms of getting back playing, like.
Yeah, no, I'm getting closer. Look, I'm up and training.
2 meters, by the way. Sorry, 2 meters.
I'm getting closer. I'm up in my training load every week. So look, I'm getting there. Look, I'll up train again this week. In regards to Saturday, probably not. Like, chance with you. look, it's still a bit weak, and I don't want to take any chances on it. So, look, I'll do another nice bit again this week of training, like so, and I'll go to the gym and I'll try to build up. But look, I'll see how it is. But hopefully I can see some action this year.
All right, so there you go. I don't know if all the audio went out there. I know the lads here were having trouble listening to it, but we will stick videos up actually individually anyway for lads to have a little listen to them afterwards, as well as having it in the stream here. So yeah, like you heard what you had to say. Like he played down the fact he's not on the management team, but he was given a lot of instruction to lads, and yeah, I mean he would transform the side if he was back. There's some things going on in that place. I tell you one thing, we make a studio for.
Stevie, are you still in the quarry there? Are you in the canteen in the quarry or something?
No, that's be next week. Next week's episode is from there.
You have Neve out breaking stones there, or what?
I don't know what's going on up there at all. Anyway, look, you heard what Mouse had to say. The questions were kind of put to him, and like I'll put them to you guys as well. I just did feel with the whole balance. Like James went to centre forward, and within 5 seconds he was fouled, and he kept running and kept running. A couple of times he got dispossessed. Give Rangers a bit of credit for that, but he was causing a little bit of havoc, and it gave him something to think about. Mick Welsh did go back centre back. Paddy went to the middle, and they looked a little bit better for that, like, you know. So it was kind of case in point proven, and that's why you'd be saying to the like of Joe, if you saw maybe Dion Wall at 3 and David English at 6, that these things do work sometimes.
Yeah, but I suppose on the flip side, Kevin, you know, sometimes you have to, like I said, take a chance to push lads. You know what I mean, to get the scores, and you know that's the kind of conundrum that we're in too. Like, you know, in terms of
I know it's not a like for like comparison.
Yeah, no. But I'm saying to you in terms of positioning lads, like, you know, and it depends on the game. Like we said with James, I know it worked when he you know, I thought it was really a trick missed against in the Baggstown game, especially when the game was in the melting pot, not to push him on when they were a man up. Against us, no problem, because you know they were tapping over the points. They were kind of in control. He was sitting back. He was, you know, holding things together, very disciplined and organised, and you know, and we were always chasing that game. But it is kind of horses for courses, I suppose. But look, probably on balance. Look, you know, like he's so hard to hold further out the field. I mean, you know, the year that the bet was and they went on to win and get to the Leinster final. I think we held Mouse. I think we held him apart from free. I think Shawnee might have held him. He might have got a point from play, which, you know, was unbelievable. Like Shawnee and him had an unbelievable battle. But the same day, James Feile scored 8 points in play, like, you know, from midfield, centre forward. He has that, you know, he has that dynamic, like, you know, I mean, look, but isn't it great? He's a fantastic chap. He'll hurl anywhere, like, sure, geez, he has the attributes to hurl anywhere. That's the killer, isn't it? Like, you know, if your lad was, you know, he can hurl anywhere, literally anywhere, you know, and you know he'll do a job for you, you know, and his attitude is spot on.
The thing he done the other day as well, and it wasn't for the entire second half, but for most of it, it kind of, until they got reset, it forced, what do you call it? It forced Diarmuid Byrne to actually have to worry about him a little bit more and not be able to drop back and protect that fucking dog in the background. I'm muting Bambrick's microphone until he gets these technical issues sorted. The sooner you get a studio built, the better. I'll bring him up here.
He's over in the pound in Paulstown now, is he?
And next week's episode of Killing the Scully will be brought to you with Cork and pretty gas thanks as well. But anyway, like that's what happened though. Diarmuid Byrne had to worry about James a bit more. Didn't get to go back and protect the full back line. And now after a while, I think Jack Ryan may have moved over onto James Doyle, and Diarmuid went back sweeping a little bit. But I think in that period, there was a bit more ball getting in past, and what do you call it? Seamus Murphy scored a couple of points. You know, the gaps were there to deliver the ball into if they wanted to. But you know, Rangers still responded. In fairness, now they didn't go away. Like they had a bad third quarter, but they came back and they're still 7 points in the end. But we have a couple of comments in, lads. So one of them is, I think Alfie had one of his ankles reconstructed only a few months ago. Freakish, it is indeed, yeah. And we'll actually bring up this one here on the screen from you, Paddy Moore. How's David feeling? How's David feeling still hurling senior?
Very harsh. Yeah.
So,
but isn't there a prime example of lads changing their game and hurling anywhere? I mean, like, you know, go back a good few years, and David was he hurled wing forward, you know, middle of the field, centre back, full back, you know. he's kind of adapted. I know some lads adapt depending on what's left in their legs, but there's a lad who's showed, unbelievable, adaptability. Like, got key positions. Like, a ball winning half forward wasn't an awful man to get, scores, but a big ball winner up there. And now was, back in the edge of the square, and has marked the best of what's in the county and done really well in them. So again, look, it maybe proves that lads can chop and change a good bit, like, but a bit harsh there, Hugh Paddy, I thought. All right, yeah.
Yeah, Jenny Mac. Yeah, look, lads, as we said, you can get in touch with us there. Just comment underneath the stream post on Facebook, or comment on it underneath Twitter or YouTube, and we do have the capability to bring it up.
Or go to Stevie's back window and shout it in.
Yeah, and and we get to the comment on +1.
Fan break +1. That's what we'll have up in the corner of the screen.
Lads, you're not here to enjoy yourselves.
Yeah. So fixtures wise, lads, and we have to keep this brief now, right? Very, we team of the week and player of the week to go through still.
Oh my god!
And it is actually it could be. I'm sorry, I just can't take it anymore. But in fairness, now I'll defend Stevie slightly. I told him to get to a place with better internet and more light. So we didn't factor in more nights as well by doing so, right? So fixtures.
Be someone cutting sticks in the background next.
I'll make it worse. I'll have to move in a minute here because the battery's nearly gone.
Oh, go on, quick.
Right, so the fixtures, take 3. On Saturday, Netwatch Cullen Park, 6 o'clock. You have Naomh Eoin and St. Mullins, and at 8 o'clock is Rangers Ballykillen. First game and verdict. So this is a tasty one. Context on it. It is actually still very much all to play for, and I think it's maybe a little bit harder to call than the second one. Look, I'm going to give prediction on the second one first. That's 8 o'clock. I think we'll be unanimous the same. Honest Rangers are probably going to win this, lads. Let's wrap it up fairly quickly.
Maybe presuming so.
Yeah.
There we go. Unless something serious happens in the meantime and there's a big drastic change, it's just they're a level off them at the moment, unfortunately. And I don't know if they're going to bridge the gap in the space of a week. So I think Rangers win that one. And the lads agree as well. So the first one, 6 o'clock then. Yeah, Naomh Eoin and St. Mullins. So big improvements with Naomh Eoin. And then St. Mullins, as we said, big improvements in the second half of their game. Naomh Eoin had the week off. This is not easy now. Stevie, you go first there.
Yeah, I was thinking about this today, and a funny feeling Naomh Eoin might pull this one out of the fire. I don't know why, but I'm going to go with them. There might be enough in that match against Munster Rangers. No, Munster Rangers only 14 for 35 minutes of it. I'm going to give him a slight nod in this one. Now, the fact St. Mullins have won one game, they need a win to put, tie up the semi-final spot. If you look at it from another point of view, if we're taking Munster Rangers going to beat Ballinkillen, this game Maistre could win this game and still mightn't matter the following week because it'll come down to it'll be basically a quarter final with ourselves and Ballinkillen if Ballinkillen lose to Munster Rangers, and so as I said, Maistre haven't their 16 scores apiece the last 2 goals obviously look like Limerick. Munster Rangers you can't be letting them get goals in the first minute. First 5 minutes, Brian Tracy had to bring off a couple of good saves. That's the first game, is it? Is Maistre the first game? Yeah, 6 o'clock. Unfortunately, we'll be looking for streaming for that because we have a confirmation here Saturday. So, I give just at I know the week gap you might be saying, but like you're looking ahead just week on week with games and. You have to break at some stage in it, and looking at the list of Ross Smithers, Killian McCabe was actually playing the intermediate game yesterday. I forgot about him. I've seen him playing the intermediate yesterday. Well, the likes of James Smithers, these lads, Scott Tracy, lads that are James Smithers new to the scene. will he give any bit more to the job? His pace against St. Mullins, would it be a better option than in other games? Look, John Michael Nolan, we've always said, is worth 3 or 4 points in any game. Conor Foley, these lads, this is a game, it's kind of a free shot in one way. It might sound stupid that the game the following week could be the one more likely to decide whether they get to semi-final or not. But I'm going to go with Michael, narrow victory. Now, look, James Doyle, Kevin, you flagged for him to be centre forward. He's centre forward. You'll be thinking they're going to play him centre forward now again next Saturday starting off. If they don't, they're going back to what they looked at for the first 30 minutes last Sunday or Saturday even. So, yeah, I'm going to stick with Michael by a point or two.
Right, Joe?
Yeah, I think it'll be a very, very close game. I suppose, look, to give a prediction, I do think probably St. Mullins might share it. I think they might maybe, this is an important one for them because, like, if Michael beat them, and if the second game goes like as we think, probably with a Leinster Rangers victory, then you potentially could have 3. If we were able to beat Michael the following week, if you get me, you could be into a 3-way playoff thing and score difference and so on. So, I think probably St. Mullins, don't want to kind of go down into that sort of a thing and leave it hang like that. And I think they'll try try to avoid that and go for the win. I do actually think if Navan, if it does go to a 3, it could go against us or against our favour. If it does come to a 3-way playoff in terms of score difference, that's the only thing. I'm putting my Ballinkillen hat on. I know we're kind of not talking about the second game, but from a Ballinkillen point of view, even if we were to win, even if we were to beat Michael, and it was a 3-way playoff, you get me, with teams level on points and level on wins, that'd probably come against us. But I think St. Mullins might have got the balance a little bit better. And when you see the likes of Oisin Ryan popping up with scores, and I think Conor Keogh got a couple of points as well, and I think he'll improve. And I know Seamus Murphy came in as a sub. We talked about impact and that, like, and I think maybe they'll kind of have they'll have teased things out a little bit in terms of their team, and I think it might be just a bit enough to get them over the line. I think Navan will give them a massive game. I think I was very impressed with them against MLR. I just thought their hurling actually just let them down today, but their work rate, their game plan, everything was spot on. And it'd be very interesting to see probably 2 of the quickest men in Carlow hurling, if they are to mark each other in terms of James Doyle and Ross Smithers marking each other, 2 very pacey, athletic players. But just a hesitant nod to St. Mullins on that one.
Yeah, I'm going with St. Mullins as well. Right, so let's move on to Team of the Week, lads. Right, we'll just run down through it, and there's no unluckies or anything like this because we just simply haven't got the time, and we'll end up forgetting someone anyway. Goalkeeper was a topic of discussion. It was a toss-up between Dean Grennan and Andrew Townsend. We went with Dean Grennan in the end. Again, puck-out's very good, steady hand. Just that's, I suppose, Andrew has all those things as well, but just literally Dean gets the nod here. Full back line, Andrew Casey, Cian Doyle, Cathal Connolly. Like you mentioned Cian Doyle a little bit earlier, he had full back last year, but deputised now because Darren Nolan was ruled out obviously the other day through suspension. And solid, I do agree with that. Andrew Casey, solid as well. Cathal Connolly's in the other corner. Again, I thought very, very steady. Half back line, Jack Murphy, Alfie and Mick Welsh. Like even the half hour that Mick Welsh hurled in the half back line, thought it was pretty good there. Kevin Mack and Niall Hickey in the middle of the field. So Kevin Mack, like, obviously played down his wing forward, where spends a lot of his time. He's nearly like a third midfielder. He's literally out that far and he goes back into the half back line. So that's justifiable, I think, to put him in the middle alongside Niall Hickey, who scored 3 great points from play. Half forward line, Craig Doyle, brilliant, playing the hurling of his life, in my opinion. I mean, he's definitely playing as good now as what he did 10 years ago, maybe even longer. Like he's playing great stuff. James Doyle, St. Mullins, a centre forward, even for that half an hour, did enough in the half an hour to justify it. Danny Doyle, absolutely brilliant as well. Not far off a contender for Player of the Week, actually. Then full forward line, Oisin Ryan, John Nolan, and Andrew Kane. So, we didn't really have too much arguments about this, lads, as such. It wasn't that difficult, was it? I know we're not going to go into lads who are unlucky sometimes. We've had worse arguments over the odds,
Yeah, a lot of them were fairly solid, fairly nailed on, in fairness,
Yeah. Stevie, you're happy enough anyway?
Ah, yeah, sure. Look, for Ball Stars, they were picked last night, the Sunday game there to give, their version to give 11 Limerick lads on it, and some lads were whinging they should have had 2 or 3 more on it. So you can't be right all the time.
Yeah.
We'll see the comment section, see will any more comments come in there.
Yeah, and that's just put in your comments there. If you think someone should be in Team of the Week, whether you're watching live or whether it's later on, just literally comment under the post, or, there's no hassle that way. Right, so yeah, Player of the Week then. We put this out to a Twitter poll. I will get a little comment on this, lads. So it was Craig Doyle of Aaron's Own. Or Aaron's Own, do you hear me? By the Gale, sorry, lads. Oisin Ryan, St. Mullins, and John Nolan, Munster Rangers. In the end, Craig Doyle takes it by 4%. So who was your hurler of the week, Stevie?
Probably John Nolan, I'd say.
Right, okay. Joe, I suppose it's unfair to ask you because I know you didn't see the second game. I'll give Alfie.
I know. Of the 3 mentioned, I didn't see the second game, so I can't comment.
Right. It's not fair to even ask it. There's no point in asking. I find this actually tough because the 3 of them did hurl very, very well. And even though John Nolan scored more than Oisin Ryan, I just thought the tap was brilliant. I thought he was absolutely brilliant, So I'd probably go with Oisin Ryan, to be honest with you, even though John Nolan scored more, which I'm going to get plenty of stick about. But yeah, that's what I'm going with. So, lads, just before we finish up, we have the Camogie to talk about as well. That was a weird game on Saturday. Carlow and Tipperary intermediate relegation playoff. Carlow were comfortable, and then Tip really came back, and Carlow held on. So great to see them at the grade again for next year.
100%.
Yeah, brilliant. Great progress being made there, in fairness. Now I know Pat Hearn I'll be chatting to Pat every now and again about it, and there's great work going on, in fairness. So well done, girls. Yeah, brilliant.
Absolutely. In other news, Damo Jordan appointed as the new GDA for Carlow. I'm delighted for him. I think he's Taylor Medford. We did try to get him on the pod the last few weeks. I believe he's busy enough at the moment. So hopefully in a few weeks' time we will get him on again. Lads, I think that's pretty much it. We've gone through a fair bit, as the fella said. As you said, you can get in touch with us if you want. We are across social media. You're obviously watching us on social media if you're still tuned in. But for those who, want to get in touch, as you said, you can comment on this direct post. But we are available on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can email us there at leftwingbackpodcast@gmail.com. And the handle across those other platforms I mentioned is simply at Left Wing Back. So again, we just want to thank our sponsors, Corker and Precast. Thanks for looking after us again. And that's where we have to leave it. I'm actually not around at the weekend, lads. There's a small matter of a stag party to attend to. So I'll leave it in your capable hands. I'll check back here, hopefully not too groggy next week. And thanks for your time, all right?
Cheers, Kev. Take care, lads.